Welcome to It's Upgrade Season, the only place to get raw and unfiltered advice on how to get your shit together 1 week at a time. I'm your host, Alexandria, and join me every Monday for The Upgrade and every Friday for The Wind Down, where I'm going to be answering your dilemmas. Small shifts, huge upgrades. Let's fucking do this. Sam, welcome to the podcast. And I can't say how buzzing I am that you're here because, well, first of all, you're my first virtual interview ever.
Oh my God, I feel honored. I wanted to come out to Texas, and maybe we still will do that someday when I come to Austin. But yeah, I'm really excited to be here and to record with you because we just wanted to get it in.
Well, this is the thing. This was going to be the second thing. I wanted you on for so long. And I was like, no, I'm only doing in person. And you were like, I'm going to come to Texas at some point. And I was like, it's going to be perfect. And then I got to the end of this year and I was like, I'm going to interview the people I want to interview. And you were top of the list. So we're doing it now. And I'm thrilled you're here.
Oh, thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
So excited. So I wanted to talk to you. I wanted to start with this kind of like soft CEO energy because you actually like super inspired me at the start of this year, sharing a lot more about how you're going to be in this soft CEO era. But I want to wind back a little bit, first of all. What led to that decision where you're like, do you know what? 2024 is the year that I'm declaring soft CEO energy.
Yeah, there was a lot of things that kind of accumulatively happened at the end of 2023 that made me going into that next year, 2024, be like, okay, something has to change. I really want to be intentional with my energy in this next year. What does this need to look like for me to feel differently and to have a better energy? So 2023 for me was a huge year personally and professionally. So many things happened. At the start of 2023, I set my word of the year to be momentum. And I always laugh about that because by the end of the year, I was like, oh, this is what momentum feels like. When you think about, I always give this analogy because I'm like, I feel like the perfect definition of momentum is like when you're running downhill and you have so much momentum that it's like almost hard for you to keep up with yourself and you're trying to move your legs just faster so that you don't face plant. Like that's a true description of like momentum. And that is literally how I felt at the end of 23. I was like, okay, be careful what you set your word as because this is what momentum fucking feels like. Crazy. So that was the year that we crossed 7 figures in my business. It was the year that we hit 1 million downloads on the podcast. I created a brand new high level mastermind. So there was new products being built, just growing my business in a lot of ways. It felt like things were exploding and taking off. I also think I went on 13 trips that year. I hosted multiple retreats. It was just like a massive fucking year all around. So much was happening. And then towards the end of the year, on both of the retreats that I hosted, I got really ill. And that was super draining because if you hosted a retreat before, you know how much of an energetic commitment it is just to facilitate and really give people a life-changing experience. But then to also be really sick. I was like nauseous, not sleeping all night, up all night long on the toilet, puking, all the things. And so that was like, oh man, that just really drained my energy. Obviously, I still was able to show up and put on the brave face and do everything. But afterwards, you feel like your energy has dwindled a little bit. And after the second time that it happened, I started to get really worried because I was like, this is weird. It's the exact same thing that happened to me last time. Because the first time I thought it was like, maybe it was food poisoning. I ate something off. Like it's just a bad timing. It won't happen again. But then it happened on the next retreat, like a little over a month later. And it was the exact same symptoms, the exact same experience. And I was just like, this is so bizarre. I don't understand what is happening. I'm not nervous. Like I love to facilitate. I've hosted retreats before. So I was just getting super in my head about it. And I, for some reason, had this feeling, like this intuitive feeling that I feel like this is like energetic. Like I feel like something is around me or something is happening that's contributing to this. So I ended up having psychic reading while I was actually on the retreat because I was like, I need to solve this. I need to figure out what this is. So I urgently had like a remote session with a psychic and who was able to tap into the energy. Long story short, I found out that I was being psychically attacked by someone in my space who was really jealous of me, who was sending out negative energy, and that it was physically impacting my well-being and my ability to facilitate. So learning this information, it felt relieving because felt okay, I like have an answer, but I felt like violated. Like I felt, and I also felt sad. I think you grow these businesses and these audiences and you pour so much into your people and your clients. And if you're a light worker in the world, wanting to help people and uplift people and help people change their lives, and then to feel like someone is seeing that and is wanting to rip it away from you or is really jealous or wants to tear you down. I know you've had experiences like that. It's a hard thing to feel like that someone
Yeah.
in your space is desiring pain or suffering for you in some way, shape, or form, whether it's
Yeah.
conscious or subconscious, but it just feels really icky. So that definitely impacted me. And then I got home from that retreat and my partner sat me down and told me that something that we had been investing in, that all the money that we invested was stolen. And he had found this out while I was on the retreat, but was keeping it from me because he knew I was sick and also trying to facilitate. So he was going through this whole thing
Oh
on his own
God.
behind the scenes. We had family members and people that also invested in this thing. So collectively, it was like hundreds of thousands of dollars that was stolen from us and our family members. The FBI was involved, the police were involved. They were trying to trace where the money went, and it just was going to be impossible to get it back or find it. So it was a huge financial loss for us and a lot of our family members. And my partner was going through a lot with that of just feeling intense guilt, shame, embarrassment, of feeling like it was his fault. Um, yeah, having to call up my dad and tell him, like, the money that you put towards this thing is gone, and his other family members that had invested with us in this thing. So that was a huge wake up call for me. All of those things together at the end of the year, and then seeing my partner go through that and really feel depressed, shamed, not doing well with his mental health. I just was like, something has to be different this next year. So much went well, and this year was such a blessing and it was amazing. But also, I feel like the energy that we're carrying, maybe it feels like we're holding a little bit too much and we can't, it's almost like we have our arms so full of blessings that we're now getting sloppy with them and we're dropping things and we're breaking things. And so that was really the inspiration, long-windedly, for moving into 2024 and being like, okay, I really want this to be my soft CEO era. Obviously, I'm really passionate about what I do and I still want to have these goals and move forward in my business and in my life. But I wanna do it in a way that feels really nourishing. I want it to feel softer. I want it to feel like there's less pressure. I want it to feel less like I'm running downhill and trying to catch my feet every single second and just have it feel more like, an enjoyable stroll. So I was just really open to whatever that was gonna look like. I was open to what that was gonna mean, if it was gonna mean that I had to make less money or that I was gonna do less launches or that I was gonna take on less private clients, or it really put me in a place of full surrender of not caring what the consequences might be of choosing a softer version of my life and my business, and just really being open to what that was gonna open up for me.
Thank you for sharing the kind of build up to that as well, because I think it's really important context. And I still remember listening to your podcast episode when you've been under this psychic attack, because I know that it happens. As you mentioned, then I've been under it multiple times, and yet people don't really talk about it and talk about how painful it can be as well. And I think that double betrayal as well of finding out the investment, it was a scam and things like this. Was there any part of you at that point that almost just wanted to give up, or felt resentful, or what was coming up for you?
Mhm. Interestingly enough, I never wanted to quit. Like, I never felt like it was time to give up or roll over. Maybe that's like just part of my personality. It didn't really, there's been plenty of times in my business where I've been like, should I just go get a real job? Would my life be simpler? I think we've all had those kind of like intrusive thoughts. Should I just go back to an office and clock out at 5 and then not have to ever think about this again? So I've had like in my lifetime as an entrepreneur, I've had thoughts like that. But with this experience, it wasn't making me feel like I wanted to quit. It was just making me feel like, okay, I'm seeing the light in terms of something has to change. Like, I'm
Brilliant.
responsible for changing the way that I approach this next year. And I guess there was probably a version of me that was like, I can fix this. Well, it's okay. Like, I know I can make this better. I'll just be softer. So, yeah, maybe it was also an approach of wanting to find a way to fix it. But I do think that it was good for me. It was what was
Yeah.
best for me. And there was a lot of people that resonated with it, you included. I'm glad that I talked about it on the podcast and shared so much about it and was open about it because I feel in my business right now.
Yeah, it definitely feels like an exhale when you say about reaching that point. And the other thing that I'm curious about, because I think people listening will be curious about this too, is it was an interesting contrast by the sounds of it, because it sounds clear from this kind of like psychic attack and things like this. Okay, like you said, we're taking on a little bit too much energy, but you just lost a big amount of money. And you just said then, the consequence of this decision of being in my soft CEO era might be that I make less money. How did you navigate balancing those two things? Because they really kind of sit in contrast to each other.
One of the biggest lessons that I learned from the investment scam situation of having that money stolen was that money is not going to save you until you save yourself. Jaime and I did a lot of reflections after that happened of, as you do when you're a personal development girly, of, okay, what did we learn here? What was the lesson? What's the takeaway? What is God or the universe trying to teach us with this? Obviously, there was a lot of space holding for us to just be like frustrated and pissed and sad and all the things. But then you
Mhm.
get to a point of, okay, and we have to move forward with our life. Like we can't just have a pity party forever about losing this money. Like it's gone. Okay, it's gone. So it is what it is. So what's the fucking point, essentially? So we had to find the point in some way. So in those reflections, I feel like one of the points that I arrived to was really this idea of money's not going to save you until you save yourself. And what I mean by that is as we were investing in this thing and really seeing how it had the ability to compound and to give us a ton of returns and start making money for us and really projecting what that was going to look like and seeing, wow, this is going to grow for us into the seven figures. Okay, now it's millions, we're into the multi-millions, like really seeing an investment like grow like that. It infects your mind to really start to go, oh, now I'll be able to feel like this. And now I'll be able to have this. And now he can buy me the engagement ring that I've always wanted. And now we can have this big, beautiful wedding. And now we can feel more financially secure to be able to go into this journey of having kids in the next couple of years. And now we're just going to be set up. And so it's all that other side of the rainbow, sort of dreaming of what that money is going to do for your life. And when it gets taken away in a very real sense, like it did for us with that, I went, "Oh, okay." Like the lesson here is that I have to give those things to myself before. I have to find a
Yeah.
way to have the happiness now. I have to find a way to feel the safety now. I have to find a way to have my wedding if I wanna have my wedding and not wait for money to save me, right? And I think no matter how much you're making or how well or not well your business is doing, like, there's always that version of us that's kind of, like, waiting for the, "When I have this, then I'll be more whatever," and that was totally the case. It was an illumination of, I've done so much work on myself around money. I have programs around money. Like I've done so much. And it was like the next layer, the deeper layer of the healing of going, okay, this was the new version of me having a, when I have more money, then I'll feel this, right? It's obviously
Yeah.
looked different in different versions of my past. And I felt I did that work and I healed it, but we're always on that healing spiral of like just going deeper. And so that was a new layer for me of realizing I was still doing that in some way. And so the choice that I had to make was like, I get to save myself. So that was me saying, I don't care if I don't make more money, right? Like money is not going to be the controlling factor in my life to choose peace, to choose happiness, to decide to do the things that I want to do. And that felt empowering for me to do it in that way. So it wasn't like, oh, we just lost money and now I might make less money because I'm making these changes in my business. It was actually like, that's the whole fucking point, right? Is to like middle finger up to like the things that were controlling us or those paradigms or the things that we were waiting for and to go, I'm not waiting anymore. Like I'm going to
Yeah.
live
Yeah.
life the way that I want to live it now. And I'm going to be who I want to be now. And I'm going to be happy now. And I'm going to be peaceful now. And I'm going to enjoy life now. And I'm going to go slower now. And I'm going to relax now. And I'm going to vacation now. Right. And by doing that, my life will be more joyful. And isn't that the whole point anyways? Because that's really where we're trying to get to with that end result thinking. Anyways, it's like when I have more of this, then I'll be more happy. But it's like, what if you gave yourself the happiness now? And even if it meant a little bit less money, like the whole point is that you wanted to get to the joy part. It wasn't even really about the money. You wanted to get to the joy part. So give yourself the joy part now.
There's a lot of very rich and very miserable people. Is And there's a lot of very rich and very happy people. But I think I just said that because to illuminate that I think we equate, like you said, that that is going to be the key, that money is the key that unlocks everything. And actually, it's not. You are the key. And just listening to you, I can hear so much liberation in this realization. I also hard relate to it because the kind of background that me and Jake have, the business that Jake had previously that he set up, it was very much a long-term game where there's no money in the short term, but there might one day be a payoff. And I noticed it was really easy for Jake and people around him to be in that one day mentality of like, but don't worry, because this is going to pay off. This will pay off. This will pay off. I find it really interesting because people always ask me like how I was supportive of Jake or not. And my honest answer is that I was always very supportive of him, but I was probably not the kind of support people would think I was. I was always the person that was saying, we don't count that money until it's in our bank account. We don't live our life as if that money is going to come to us until the day that it actually comes to us. Because otherwise, we could waste 5, 10, 15, 20 years being like, well, one day, well, one day. And in that meantime, life's gone by and you've missed life. And you could have been enjoying it in the interim. So I love that you're bringing light to this conversation. I actually listened to your episode as well when you talk about the money lessons. And I know you illuminated this in there as well. I love that you're bringing light to this conversation because I think it permeates so many parts of entrepreneurship of I will just sacrifice myself now and then later I will give myself the things that I really needed.
Yeah.
But the sad thing is that later might be too late.
Yeah. Yeah. And later, what is later? Do we even have later? Are we guaranteed later? Are we even going to enjoy it the same way that we're imagining later after we've spent all this time running ourselves into the ground in some way? So, yeah, that I think it was along with all of the hard things that happened to us at the end of the day. I think we can look back on a lot of them and go, that was a lesson that I needed and I'm grateful for it, even though it sucked. But yeah, it was definitely good for me in the end. It was worth the money that it cost to get there.
So you've made this decision. You're like, I'm in my soft CEO era. How did that practically unfold for you? What were some of the shifts that you made in response to that decision?
Yeah. So I decided that I was going to launch less that year in my business because the previous year, I think I had done 10 or 11 launches. That is basically almost every month of the year, which it didn't feel like that's what was happening, but when I did the numbers and I looked back, I was like, that is a lot of fucking launches. So I was like, all right, let's pull it back a little bit with that. We're going to do less launches, less frequent, really big, intense like pushes for selling things. I also decided that I was not going to run a big kind of like international retreat that year, and that I was also going to take on fewer one-on-one clients, but at a rate that felt better in terms of the energy exchange and the time that I really wanted to be able to pour into people. And also some like changes with my calendar. I decided to take Fridays off. So I wasn't going to work anymore on Fridays. So I was going to attempt to do a 4-day work week, which I'm glad that I did that and I still have it implemented. But to be totally honest, like it didn't always work out that way. There were times where I had to do some things on Fridays, just depending on the season or what was going on that week. But for the most part, it was nice to have more spaciousness, so some more white space in my calendar. I also hired another team member to come on to do some more delegating and take some more things off of my plate. Yeah, so there's quite a few like significant changes that we made to help me feel more spacious and more free.
I love this. And now we're kind of coming to the end of 2024, which I can't believe. Like, how is it the 11th of December already? What are some of the things that you feel are the key lessons or integrations that you're wanting to carry forward into 2025 from this year?
Yeah, so I think something that I have learned about myself and that's been reflected back to me quite a few times, which wasn't always the case, but I do feel like I have this really balanced integration between my masculine and my feminine in my life and in my business nowadays. It wasn't always the case. I started out like very much in my masculine. And I would say that's still like my default in terms of like problem solving. Like when something goes wrong, I'm like, lean in, try to fix it, work harder. So that's definitely the I think we all have a default setting. Whereas if you have the
Mm,
kind of like feminine default, it's lean out, take space, can't think about this right now, avoid. But
mm,
my default is definitely like to lean in and be a fixer of things. But I would say that I feel like I have a really good balance between those two sides of myself. And so when I go into this next year, I really want to take with me all of the beautiful feminine elements that I integrated this year with having the soft CEO era. And also, I feel excited because there's a part of me that feels like ignited, and there's that like masculine energy spark that's like ready to take on the world and excited for like the new things that I'm going to create and what is business going to look like. And I still have that like hunger. And I'm really excited to continue to marry those two sides of myself and see what that creates this year. Cause I do think, like I said, going into 2024, it was very much like I need a bit more of the feminine. I need a bit more of the ease. I
mm.
need a bit more of the peace. Um, and yeah, I think this next year is going to be more of like a kind of yin yang, equally
Lame.
yoked sort of year. At least that's the vibe I'm getting. Oh God, I'm like terrified at this point to say what I think. You know how you like have a vision for the year and then you look back and you're like, oh my God, why the fuck did I say that?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. The last 3 years have been like that, to be fair. So
Oof.
I get that. I do also think I love that you said then there as well about this kind of like yin yang though energy and that setting that intention because I think it's very normal for us to pendulum swing as well when we're trying to like bring more balance. And I think that part can freak people out, but actually it's kind of necessary. Like I know in my own journey, like when I've needed to rebalance something, my rebalancing has sometimes meant I've gone almost too far one way and had to realize like, okay, maybe I've gone too far this way and now I can kind of find my middle. And I think that's quite reassuring to know that we can kind of sway and then we find that yin yang sweet spot.
Yeah, I think we've all experienced that pendulum swing, whether it's in our work life or I think with like health and fitness stuff is another big area that a lot of women experience it with of being really in the masculine of going so hard at those health goals or being really obsessed with the health foods or whatever it is. And then you go over to the other side of you only live once and just doing whatever you want. And then also feeling the chaos of that at some point of I don't actually feel good. My energy is super low. Ew. And then wanting to go back. Like we are doing that pendulum swing, but I do think that there has to come a point where you are doing at not as much of a hard swing into the extremes, but you're
Mhm.
actually finding a way to dip in and dip out. And that's how I felt about this last year was like I knew that I needed more of that feminine energy, but I wasn't like overly swinging to it to where it was like, oh my God, and now my business is suffering and I'm not making as much money because I'm just doing whatever the hell that I want. Like it was still a
Yeah.
really incredible year. Like we still grew so much in
Mhm.
business. We actually ended up making more money and doing better. That was like a random like side effect of, being in a better energy, which I wasn't
Yeah.
expecting. And I think that's also worth talking about of like being like, well, I'll just be softer because then I'll make more money. Like it can't be this secretive secondary agenda that you have of I'm going to surrender and I don't need it. So then I'll actually get it. Like it can't be that. It has to be genuinely like I said at the start of the year, I was like, I'm okay if I make less money. Like I'm fully aware that is a very possible, highly probable consequence of these decisions that I'm starting to make. But it wasn't necessarily the case of how it came true, but I would have been okay if it was, right? But all that
Really.
to say, I felt like it was a really good dip into the feminine rather than a super like hard swing into the left side of things that left me in chaos. So now I can just dip back into the masculine a little bit and just do that kind of like little dip in and dip out of both of those sides of ourselves.
I love that. I love that explanation of the dipping in and the dipping out. You mentioned then like you've still got this kind of spark and this that there's that spark of the masculine that's excited for the things that are going to happen next year. Are there any, can you give us any hints or clues or is there anything that particularly lights you up that you're thinking about or that's in your kind of energy for 2025?
Yeah. So there's already some things that I've talked about with my high level mastermind. we've moved it to an annual model. So I'm going to get to spend a full 12 months with the women inside of that space, which feels so exciting, so nourishing. That's one of my favorite spaces to lead and guide. And so to really be able to work with 12 months with these high level business owners, female entrepreneurs, leaders, like that feels so juicy and exciting for me. And we always do an in person immersion experience with that mastermind. But this year, I'm excited about re envisioning what that looks like too. I'm thinking of making it more like an event rather than like in the past, it's been like a retreat, like getaway weekend. But I am playing with the idea of making it more of a really vibey event, like here in Miami,
Mm.
and just like renting out an epic space and being on the beach. And I don't know, that feels exciting. The vision is still forming for that, but just to like share with you some of the behind the scenes
Yeah.
of what I'm visioning for that. Yeah, some changes to the mastermind, an event potentially coming. And I am also feeling excited about the idea of creating like some new products. Like I feel this, like you said, when we talked on my podcast about creativity being one of your words potentially for 2025. I feel like I'm in my creative vortex and I want to put out some more offers, not necessarily like big mastermind spaces, but I'm almost feeling this call to do these like smaller, like taster menu size, accessible things that are still designed for my high level client and the woman who's scaling, a multi 6 or 7 figure business. So that feels really exciting to me because that in the past has typically been something that I didn't really lean towards. I've been more of like a
Yeah.
deep space creator of building these 4, 6, 12-month spaces that are really like in depth. And I don't know, I feel like I'm having this around to want to do some like smaller offers and some things that people can just jump in on. And that feels exciting to me. In terms of like personal life, I think 2025 will be the year that I get engaged. Would be amazing to start planning a wedding. Although I'm like, that feels super overwhelming for me. I was just talking to my assistant about this the other day. I'm like, if I'm planning this event, maybe I should opt out of trying to plan a wedding as well in 2025. But you can do it.
Oh my gosh, I love this.
So yeah, I think it's gonna be a really good year.
And do you have any idea where you'd want to get married? Because I know you met in Spain and you have this amazing romantic Spanish. It's very like Emily in Paris to me. This romantic story that's got this tie to Spain. So yeah,
Yeah.
do you have any idea where you
Yeah.
get married?
We definitely want to get married in Spain. And it's funny because when we were living there, because I lived there for 6 years after I graduated college and declined my job offers to move there for him and see if the relationship would work. So at the time when we were living there, what's like you said of you being from England, you don't think of going to Europe as like being this like special thing. But then once you like in the States, it's like a fun, bougie, like really like romantic idea to go and travel Europe. Well, the same thing happened for me when we were living in Spain. I was like, I don't know. I don't think I want to get married here. I want to get married somewhere else, like on a beach, and like a destination wedding type vibe, but not here. But
Yeah.
then since we've been back in the States for a couple of years, I'm like, no, we're definitely getting married in Spain. What? I think about all of the girls that would die to be able to get married in Europe. Like they want to have these weddings or Spanish weddings. And it just feels so romantic, but they don't have any ties to those countries. And I'm like, if me of all people that fell in love with this guy, and it's like Lizzie McGuire movie, right? Like the story does not make sense if we do not get married in Spain. So I do feel that as the vision.
Oh my God, this is so exciting. I'm like ready for the proposal content. I'm ready for the wedding content. I want to hear it all. Like I'm so here for it. I'm so here for it.
I'm here for it too, babe. Let's hope it's right around the corner.
How do you navigate? And I'm curious about this because I feel like I kind of got dealt a hand by God and I kind of moved from that place. But prior to that happening, I really struggled with the timing of things and navigating the timing. You have this incredibly successful career. You're a woman in your 30s, which I hate to bring up, but I think is important to bring up because I think we still do fall prey to societal pressures, but also our own navigating our own things within our own bodies. How do you navigate timing? Like I don't want to use the word balancing, but kind of balancing the business, the personal, and the timing for those decisions.
Yeah, it's so funny because as soon as I turned 30, I felt like a switch flipped inside of me, and I suddenly was like, "Babies, children, oh my god." Like, and but it was literally, I'm not even kidding you, it was like night and day. Like, it could have been
Big.
the last day of my 29th year, and I was, like, so set on, Jaime and I are both in this area phase of our life where we're really focusing on building our careers, like, especially for him, we've just moved back to America. He was previously a lawyer in Spain, so he had to completely reinvent himself, can't be a lawyer in America. So, start over, blank slate. Who are you? What do you wanna do? He's gone through this whole identity crisis. And then with everything that we talked about at the start of the episode, like he's been on his own journey of redefining himself and really figuring out a career path here and like life in America. And it's been a huge adjustment. And then for me, just like in business, of feeling that like hunger of wanting to keep growing and scaling and getting my business to a place where it's like baby proof. Like we talked about on my episode, you were like committed to getting the funnels set up before you got pregnant because that's going to be the thing that safeguards me being able to continue to make money before I have a baby. So I think there's a lot of things that were at or that still are at play in terms of is the right time for us to go into this next phase of life. But I swear to you, like I turned 30 and suddenly I was like, I think it's time. I think I'm ready. Like I want a baby. And then I was like, no, I don't. No, I don't. And that's it. It'll happen when it's supposed to happen. And then there'll be certain times where I'm
Yeah.
like, wouldn't be the worst thing if I got pregnant right now. And it just that
Yeah.
like, so I feel like that's where I've been for the past year is like this back and forth of like, what if I just got pregnant today? Like that
Mm.
would be fun. And then the next day I'm like, absolutely not. Like we need to wait. I think the biggest thing is that like, I wanna be on the same page with my partner. So I still do
Mm.
genuinely feel like we've been together for almost a decade at this point. We
Really.
obviously love and adore each other. We're gonna be partners for life. If we were to fall pregnant, it wouldn't be the worst thing. Like, we would just same like with you and Jake, it's okay. I guess this is like what we're doing now. So then you just figure it out. And I know that in my bones. So I'm not like stressed about it. But then I also think there's those very real worries of what if I find out that like fertility is like an issue for me or that it's like really hard
Mhm.
for us. And so I think that's just a real thing for women in their 30s of feeling like that timeline is ticking. And I mean, I guess I could go get testing done to see what it's like in terms of fertility, but I feel like the only way to find out if it's working is to try. And then I might end up like you, get pregnant on the first try and be like, okay, well, I guess we're good to go. And we're going. And now this is actually happening. It's a lot. And I think it's just good to have these
Really.
conversations because so many women carry the mental load of when is the right time? Is my partner going to be ready? Am I ready? What is this going to change in my life? How is it going to affect my business? What's it going to look like for fertility? Like, am I ready to be pregnant? All these things. And so I'm very much in that season of life as well. How am I navigating the idea of timing? I just am putting one foot in front of the other. Every day is a new day. I'm not actively trying to start a family right now, but I am
Brilliant.
excited about that being on the horizon. I saw a psychic recently that told me 2026. So, no, you never know. You never know. But yeah, I think I'm just like leaving it up to God's timing and also waiting. Like I said, I really want my partner to be on the same page
Brilliant.
as me. Obviously, he doesn't feel fully ready yet. I don't think it would be fair to be like, I want it, so we're going to do it. I really want to have a partner who's fully in it with me and is like excited and ready to go and feels capable and feels confident. Not that we're going to totally feel ready to be parents because you're never going to feel like you know what you're doing, but it's important for us to be on the same page. And I don't think that we're fully there yet.
I really love that you mentioned that because I think that's really important. And I don't think that's maybe spoken about enough either. Like making sure that both of you, because as is the way, you even though you're in a partnership, you're two individuals. And you have to be really mindful that you both are on your individual journeys as much as you're on one together. So I think it's really beautiful that you holding space for the fact, like, okay, we both need to be in agreement that this is it'll never be the perfect time, but the right time for us. But I did also have to giggle when you said about that switch getting flicked because I don't remember it being on my 30th. It was a little bit later for me, but I remember saying to my therapist, I was like, I have a biological drive to get pregnant right now, but mentally I'm not there. And she was like,
Totally.
just tell you what about. She's like, explain. It's fine. She's like, I've never heard a woman explain it as like a biological drive. And I was like,
No,
that's what
that's
it feels
literally
like.
what it is.
My body is like, let's have a baby. And my head is like, you thinking?
Yeah, no, that's literally what it is. It's your
Yeah.
body is like begging for babies, and your mind is like, can you calm down? Just have some level of chill. And I feel that's where I'm like, that's the constant back and forth of let's do it right now. And then the mind is, let's absolutely not do it right now. Like, what? So yeah, I'm sure many people will be able to relate, but that's definitely the way to describe it. It's like your body is like, I'm ready, and your mind is, I don't know.
And it's so weird because like during that part of my cycle as well, it would be so obvious to me, like everything would shift. I'd be like, no, maybe now is the right time. No, maybe we should try. And then I'd have to like really talk to myself, be like, no, this is your ovaries are doing this to you. Your hormones are doing this to you. Like, simmer down, pull it back, rein it in.
People think like, don't you think that there's probably a spiritual element of that too? Like if you have a spirit baby, because you know how they say like your spirit baby will kind of like be in your space or be nearby, kind of like waiting for the moment. Like they've chosen you as your parents, but like they're waiting for the moment to be able to come through. I feel like there's definitely like a spiritual element of it too. If you have a spirit baby in your realm, I think that feeling intensifies because it's like they are ready and they're like waiting in the wings for the right moment or for like you to be ready. So I do think that I feel my trip to like Egypt, I'm sure I feel like I was like, okay, there's definitely a spirit baby. And I have had some intuitives tell me that there's definitely a spirit baby in my space. So I'm like, oh my God, hopefully hopefully you're like just hanging out, chilling for a little while. Hopefully it's cozy in
Feel
your little like
cozy
bubble around me wherever you are.
until
Just keep
2026.
yeah,
Then
I'm
we
like
can.
just keep watching mama kill it. Not your time
I'm in
yet. Okay.
of your spirit baby, like Chris Jenner, then, you know, when she's on the camera and she's like, you're doing great, sweetie.
Yeah,
In
literally.
the
My spirit
wings.
baby is, you're doing great, honey. I'm like, you just stay there, just hang on.
I love that. Yeah, and I think it's so true. It's so funny because I always talk about being so surprised I was pregnant, and I was fully, fully surprised. And there was also part of me that knew I was pregnant because like I hadn't taken a just in case test for forever and ever and ever. Like it wasn't normal for me to take a just in case pregnancy test. So like there was must have been part of me that also knew like, oh no, like now's the time. Even though I then went
It's
into full body
happening.
shock from this whole other thing. Okay. I would love to just like wrap this up and like close this up a little bit by I feel like you're so amazing at and I was actually talking to Vita about this. We were talking about you this morning in the
Oh,
best kind of way.
lovely.
In the best kind of way. I want to normalize this. Girls talk about other girls in a good way behind their back. So we were talking about you on our morning call in the best way. And we were saying like something that you've been so incredible and we feel from the outside looking in is you're actually very consistent. Like you have this real consistency. I think it would be very easy for someone to come into your world right now and be like, oh, like she's made it. She's got the podcast, she's got the business, she's got the apartment, she has all these things. And really not to realize like the journey behind that and the consistency behind that. With that in mind, I wondered if you had any tips for people as we're moving into a new year, fresh energy, if they're looking to make shift happen and make stuff happen and make shit happen, how can they harness consistency, any other kind of tips that they can really implement to make 2025 an incredible year?
Yeah, I think this is I love that reflection. Thank you for that. And I've been getting this a lot like recently, which I'm like, okay, wow. Like I've had a couple of friends be like, you're my stable friend. You're so consistent. And I'm like, oh, okay. I really, obviously, that's a beautiful thing to be reflected back
Mm.
to you. And so I have been thinking about, okay, like what has made this possible? What makes me this way? To a certain degree, I think I have a level of like inherent consistency of it's part of my personality of just being the person that shows up no matter what. But I also think that when you really love what you're doing and you are excited by your own life, it makes it easy to keep doing the things and working on the projects. Like I feel like the inconsistency comes in when there's an incongruence between what you're doing or what you think you should be doing, or you're looking too much at what other people are doing and thinking that you should be modeling it the way that they are, or where you're starting to feel this kind of like resentment or you're not aligned anymore with what you're doing, but you're trying to force yourself to be consistent, right? So it would be easy for me to give this advice of just like successful people show the fuck up even when they don't want to, which is facts, right? So there is a level of the kind of tough love of, yes, I'm all for feminine energy and we've got to take care of our mental health. But I also think there's a super like way too soft side that we've gone into this narrative of if it doesn't feel good, then you shouldn't do it. And that's
Mm.
bullshit. Sometimes things don't feel good and you need to just fucking do it. But at the same time, it's if it's something that you are not aligned with, you're not excited about, like you don't like it, or you're in comparison, you're looking at too many other people, you have too much noise in your life, then that's going to make that type of advice of just keep doing it, not really work for you. That doesn't make sense. So I think we have to have this ability of being really like grounded in who we are, having self trust. I always say self trust is my main business strategy, but it's really like my life strategy, right? And I think that's made the biggest difference in my business journey as an entrepreneur so far is I have this feeling inside of me that I trust myself, that I'm my safest asset, that I know who I am, that if I want to change, I can change, that I'm not scared to be who I am, like showing up authentically is easy for me. It's fun because I love who I am, right? Being a secure CEO, being secure in who you are, having secure in your life and your relationships, that makes you function way more optimally in business. And so if you have these chaotic things that are happening in your life behind the scenes or in relationships with these dynamics where you're not setting boundaries or you're still people pleasing, all of those things are really going to pull you away from that grounded, clear, centered place that's going to allow you to recognize, do I need more consistency or do I actually need to cut out some of the noise? Do I need to stop looking at what other people are doing? Do I need to make a pivot or a shift in my business because this is no longer aligned, right? There's not going to be one single piece of advice that's going to be universally applicable to everyone of where they're at. And that's where you being an intuitively led business owner really comes into play is can you actually trust yourself to honor what you're feeling and what you're knowing to be the truth for you and just move forward in that. So I don't even think that I've been so consistent in the exact same way the entire time. Like I've had
Yeah.
consistency in showing up, but that has changed and evolved and looked different. Like I used to post a lot more on social media. I used to be on stories every day. Like I don't do that anymore. That looks differently, but it doesn't mean that I'm not consistent. I'm consistent with my new methods. I'm consistent with my new way, but it's consistently being adapted to who I am and what season of life I'm in and where my priorities are at. And that all always comes back to like me knowing what I need, what's best for me, who I am, having my blinders on, being in my lane. That's the biggest success hack is like actually knowing who you are and trusting yourself. That's how you're going to be able to show up consistently.
Well, I loved that answer more than I ever expected. Like, I love that you bring in this element of self-trust. And I'm curious for you, what did that journey look like? Have you always been in self-trust? Did you have to cultivate the self-trust? Like, yeah, how you cemented that in so firmly?
Yeah, I think there's a certain degree of, again, inherent like confidence and self trust from the way that I was raised, from the way that I grew up, from my natural kind of like makeup, human design, astrology, whatever you want to attribute it to. I think there are people that are just generally more confident in themselves. And I don't want to lie at all and say, no, I learned this all from zero. I do think that there's a side of that that has come more naturally to me. But certainly, there's been so many times where I'm pulled into comparison or question my business model because of what's the popular thing or what other people are doing. Or, when you see all of these numbers and people that are making tons of money and like the way that they're doing it and starting to think, oh, maybe I should do like that. Maybe I should act like that. Maybe I should shift my branding like that. Of course, that's a natural, like human experience. So for me, the journey back to self trust all the time is consistently being able to recognize and see those things for what they are. Cause it's normal to get pulled into it for a hot minute, but then we have to be able to recognize the pattern of what that is and go, okay, I'm comparing myself again. And even like knowing your cycle, like you talked about with like when you're at the ovulation phase of your
Yeah.
cycle, that's when like you get that biological urge of let's make a baby. But it's like our cycles influence so much for us as women. And so even knowing where I'm at in my cycle, like when I'm a few days before my period, I'm in existential crisis. Like I'm in who am I? Imposter syndrome. Oh my God. Does anybody even like me? I'm becoming irrelevant. No one's going to buy from me. This next year is going to be what if it all tanks? Can I afford these things that I'm investing in? Fuck. And then I just have to know it's going to go away. Like it's going to pass. So I think that's a huge hack. But always being able to recognize the things for what they are, to see the forest for the trees, of like to see that's happening and then go, okay, hang on, I'm not going to take action from that place. I'm not going to burn my
Bring
business down because I got pulled into a comparison trap and now I want to do something totally different. Or this one thing inspired me and I'm like, maybe I'll just be like an influencer now. And now you start like taking action from that place and doing like weird shit. It's, can I have enough like groundedness to wait it out for a little while and see
is
that
a
pattern and go, is this actually true for me? Or is it just a moment? Is it just a comparison? Is it just a phase? What's actually true for me? Being able to come back is really important and not take action from those extreme places that we get pulled into mentally.
Yeah, I think that's such powerful advice. And I think the thing that I would add to that, something that I really am focusing on my life so much as well, is just slowing down. Because I think that speed can be really valuable to us, particularly as entrepreneurs. Like when we can move fast and we do, and then we kind of work out what has to happen behind the scenes afterwards. Like there is power in that. And I think there's times in your business when that can really serve you. But I think as your business matures, but also as we mature, I think realizing the power of slowness is so powerful, and just taking that hot minute before you make a decision or you act on a decision, and maybe waiting till the next part in your cycle before you you burn everything down or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we've underrated the power of slowness for too long, and I think it's having a renaissance. I think people are realizing there is real power in slowness too.
Yeah, like going back to the childhood lessons, slow and steady wins the race, like the tortoise and the hare. Oh, we find out everything was always like the cliches are ultimately true at the end of the day. And that, yeah, I think that's very real of like slow and steady. And I think like there's been times in my journey in business where, yes, I've grown quickly, but also you see so many people around you that are growing way faster. Like you see these people that skyrocket from like a zero to a million or multi-millions in their very first year. And then it's just compounding from there. And you're going, wow, like I want to have this next like quantum leap. Like I think a lot of people going into the new year will probably be like, I want to quantum leap my life this year. And that's beautiful. And also something that I've realized is that I'm really grateful for all the times that I didn't really quantum leap because it allowed me to really catch up to the growth that was happening and to have this like slow and steady and stable incline in business. Whereas I've had like peers and friends and people that I've seen online that go, they skyrocket up and then it's now they have all of this influx, they have all this volume, they have all this demand, they have all these new problems. They don't have the support, they don't have the back end, they don't have the tech. And so now they're on this like rocky road of holy shit, I'm trying to catch up to the growth. And sometimes it makes people plummet or it really affects them mentally. And so I think I've learned to be grateful for the slow and steady and stable growth of, yeah, just moving at my own pace and not needing to be like quantum leaping every 5 seconds.
Yeah, adore this. Completely adore this. I'm going to ask you a couple of rapid fire questions to end.
Oh,
I carry on chatting forever, but first one is a little bit spicy. What's one thing you'll never apologize for?
believing what I believe. I'm so unapologetic with my beliefs. I think it's definitely created some waves in like my circle, family. Even ever since I was a kid, I've always just been like, yep, and that's me and what I believe is what I believe and I don't care if you disagree with me.
I love that. What's the most random thing you've Googled recently?
Oh, what did I just I'm like a chat GPTer now.
I was I was literally going to say or chat GPT. I feel like, yeah, either or.
Yeah. So I actually just did this last night, I think. I saw this piece of content that was about like what planetary ruler of your second house like means about your journey with like wealth and how you make money. And so I quickly was like, shit, I don't have my I can't find my birth chart and any of these apps that I have. So I was just like ChatGPT, put in my like birth date, place, time. I'm like, what is the ruler of my second house? That's my most recent.
Oh, genius. I love knowing all these like genius ways of using chat GPT. When you think of a new thing, you're like, I got it to analyze all my skincare the other day. I was like, do any of these have any acne causing ingredients? And if it did, I was like, what would you recommend as an alternative to this product? It was amazing.
Oh
So
my
good.
God. I need to do that. Wait, how did you do it? Did you do it with just stating the brand and the name of the makeup, or did you take a picture?
Yeah, so I wrote it and I was like, I'm gonna do an analysis of my makeup bag. If I give you the product names, can you tell me if they've got any acne causing ingredients? And if they do, can you recommend me an alternative? And then I was just typing in the name of each product and it would like come up. The analysis were a bit too in depth. So I then had to ask it to shorten the analysis because I was like, okay, like
Please shut the fuck up.
please cut this down. Like, I love that you're analyzing all of this and telling me all the benefits of each ingredient. However, could we little summaries? But it was brilliant. Yeah, I got rid of some products because of it.
That's
Yeah,
amazing. So I just
it was
heard on a
good.
podcast recently, I was like, another great use of ChatGPT is if you have a recipe that you get
Yeah.
off of Pinterest or something, you can put it into ChatGPT and ask it to give you the grocery list for it. And it'll separate it all out for you into like produce items versus like spices. And so then you can just go to like, how much of a hack is that?
That is genius. I'm just,
Like,
I
oh my
love
God,
ChatGPT.
me too. I'm a fan.
And then final question, what's one final hot tip that you could give people to upgrade their life?
Mm. Let's think of a good one for the new year. When I think about upgrading my life, I think it always starts with the identity piece. So, changing the way that you see yourself and really adopting the new identity is, for me, I think the first domino that kind of affects all the rest. So, I think I would say decide who you're going to be in this next chapter, this next era, this next phase of your life, and build an identity around it. Like, I'm the type of woman that does this or gets to have this or experiences life this way or carries this energy or has this outlook. Like, who are you actually going to be, and start changing that identity piece and decide, right? The first step in shifting your identity is to really decide that something is possible for you, that something is available for you, and that you are the creator of your reality. So make that decision now. That was something so powerful for me the first time I ever was 24. I was completely broke. I was reading Secrets of the Millionaire Mind by T. Harv Eker. And there's an exercise where it was like, you have to write down at what age you're going to be a millionaire. And I was completely broke, living in Spain at the time, no business. I had no business even thinking about the fact that I could ever be a millionaire. But in that moment, I was like, I'm being forced to decide. I have to decide. I have to make this clear. I have to write it down. And so I wrote it down. I said, millionaire by 31, because I initially felt 30. And then I was like too scared. I was like, 31. But it ended up happening for me just a couple months before my 30th birthday. So there's really deep power in deciding who you're going to be and what's going to be available for you. And you never know what could happen for you in a couple of years, even if it feels completely out of reach, like you have no business dreaming that big. Decide.
Oh, such a powerful note to end on. Sam, where can everyone find you?
You guys can find me on Instagram at _Samantha Daily. That's mainly where I hang out. You can find the podcast anywhere that you listen to podcasts, Apple, Spotify. We're also on YouTube with our video episodes. The podcast is called Makeshift Happen. And yeah, if you want to inquire about masterminds or programs, you can go to samanthadaily.com or just hit me up in my DMs. I'm always there to chat and talk with you guys. I love meeting people. So let me know if you listened to this episode and if you found me through Alex.
Amazing. Thank you so much.